Years ago, in August, I functioned as the chief engineer for a design-build construction firm, often away due to work commitments. This particular week followed suit, with an early morning flight from Hartsfield-Jackson scheduled for the next day, necessitating a 4 a.m. wake-up call to bypass Atlanta traffic. After wrapping up at work on Monday to return home and ready myself, unforeseen problems arose in Baton Rouge, consuming my Tuesday afternoon, evening, and half of Wednesday. Etherly, our site project manager, may have learned from this incident, but I'll maintain vigilance over him. By Wednesday afternoon, I was navigating I-10 to meet colleagues in New Orleans. Mary Jo Pelly, a construction manager whom I had mentored in Atlanta, was about to go on maternity leave soon. As her confidant, I paid particular attention to her project to ensure it was thoroughly documented for her replacement. Unexpectedly, Mary Jo exhibited control over all matters. Following a dinner with Mary Jo and her spouse Ozzy on Wednesday, we convened for a planning meeting the next morning. Subsequently, I departed from Louis Armstrong Airport, navigated Atlanta traffic to arrive at my office by 1:45 p.m. There I briefed my superior, Mr. Strickland, about the Baton Rouge project, suggesting stricter oversight, and updated him on Mary Jo's advancements in New Orleans. He concurred with my recommendations and instructed me to take the rest of the day off. Upon submitting my expense report, I was wrapping up when Ethan Gardner, a close friend since third grade and colleague for 6 years, entered my office and closed the door. "Hey Trent, how did your journey go?" It was lengthy but fruitful. The Baton Rouge project should be managed better now, but I'm drained. Mr. Strickland granted me a day off, so I'm departing. Ethan appeared somber, prompting me to chuckle and explain. "No, I haven't been fired. Mr. S. granted me a day off as compensation for the additional time I spent cleaning up in Baton Rouge. I intend to purchase flowers and wine, aiming to be in a good mood when Reagan returns home. Work matters can wait." Ethan interrupted abruptly. "Trent, this isn't about work, it's about Reagan." I asked anxiously, "What's wrong with Reagan?" A wave of fear washed over me. "No one has contacted me if something happened to her." Ethan stumbled over his words. "Trent, she's been unfaithful during your travels." Anger surged as I looked at my longtime friend Ethan. Reagan, despite her free-spirited college years, had promised to settle down when our relationship became serious, seeking therapy to aid her transition. I believed in her. "Ethan, this isn't a joke. If you're kidding, leave and reconsider our friendship before returning," I stated sternly. Ethan seemed distressed. "I'm being truthful, Trent. Reagan has been unfaithful." Jake Campbell learned from Clay that Reagan had been unfaithful, as he discovered she wasn't monogamous, which was why he didn't conceal the information. This revelation shattered my world when Ethan shared it with me, confirming my deepest suspicions about Reagan. I knew it wasn't accurate, and I was enraged at Ethan for buying into such a foolish lie. My anger shifted towards those disseminating the falsehood and the fool who initiated it. I was also angry with Ethan, my longtime friend, for aiding and spreading this fabrication. "Ethan, it's not true." Ethan, standing at 6 feet tall and around 150 pounds, had always been a scrawny, intellectual individual. He understood I was capable of carrying out my threat. He lowered his gaze, shook his head, then looked up with a look of pain in his eyes. "Trent, I'm sorry. We've been friends for a long time, and I don't want to hurt you. Now leave before I decide to act on my anger." "If I hadn't spoken up, you might suffer more. You're aware of your hot temper, and I've helped cool you down on numerous occasions in high school to keep you out of trouble. I wouldn't be telling you this if I wasn't sure it was accurate. Here's the name of a private investigator my cousin hired when he suspected his wife of infidelity. If this investigator finds Reagan guilty, understand that it's the truth." I took a deep breath to control myself. Ethan was right. We've been best friends since his family moved next door when we were kids. He was the composed intellectual who kept us out of trouble, and I was the flamboyant athlete who extricated us from predicaments. We attended different colleges, but I recommended him for a job at my firm, and we've worked together for 6 years. Although I didn't believe Ethan's tale, I understood that he must have believed it and was trying to shield me. With a long sigh, I inquired, "Was your cousin's wife the one Miss Haya investigated?" Indeed, Ethan replied with a grimace. Despite the divorce, he continues to see his ex-wife twice weekly for childcare. His affection for his kids is profound, and he'd go to great lengths to safeguard them. Without them, he might have harmed her and faced capital punishment. I'm sorry, mate. Ethan picked up his call, exited my office with the door shut behind him. I was left pondering his allegations concerning his cousin. Compassion for the man overcame me, mainly for the children. Reagan and I had been discussing expanding our family, hoping for a son and daughter. I composed myself before packing up and leaving for home. Driving, I attempted to erase Ethan's words, but the notion he sparked persisted as I joined the highway. No, I didn't trust it, not in the slightest. Quite the contrary, I rejected the idea entirely. The entire situation appeared absurd, but it was critical. As I traveled north on I-75, I contemplated informing Reagan about it, but ultimately decided against it. There was no reason to enrage her over such falsehoods, even if they originated from Ethan. Having popped into the grocery store briefly, I stepped into the kitchen where Reagan embraced me tightly. "You're back early," she remarked before our lips touched. "Catching up on time lost since Tuesday morning," she continued. "I've been working late for the past 2 nights to leave early today for you. Goodness, how much I missed you, Trent." Smiling internally about her beauty and humor, I disregarded the unfounded rumors spread by Ethan's friend. Trusting Reagan's love for me and her loyalty, I pushed aside those doubts as she fell asleep peacefully. I attempted to read, but my mind was occupied with Ethan's accusations. Convinced of their falsehood, I needed to prove it to Ethan in order to salvage our friendship. Driving to work on Friday, I made a decision. Contact the private investigator Ethan mentioned, not to expose Reagan's infidelity, but to confirm her innocence. I dialed Donna Hightower's office and scheduled an appointment for Monday afternoon. At 2:10, I entered the office early. Prior to marrying Reagan, I maintained a substantial investment account under my own name, enabling me to hire an investigator discreetly. A tall, elegant black woman with black slacks, a white blouse, and a red scarf, identified as Donna Hightower, welcomed me in the conference room at 2. "Good afternoon, Mr. Rowe. I'm Donna Hightower. How can we assist you?" Her firm handshake and piercing gaze indicated her sharpness and expertise. "Hello, Miss Hightower. Thank you for meeting with me at such short notice. My predicament is straightforward. I travel frequently, and a rumor has surfaced that my wife is unfaithful. I need you to confirm its inaccuracy." She probed me with insightful questions, and I disclosed everything I knew about the allegation in Reagan. Her queries focused on Reagan's past and present romantic history. Feeling disheartened as she put down her pen and said, "Thank you for the information, Mr. Rowe. Your client profile indicates you hold a bachelor's and master's degree in engineering from Georgia Tech. How acquainted are you with our legal system's philosophical aspects, specifically the burden of proof?" I hadn't anticipated this question. Although I had taken an introductory philosophy course during my undergraduate studies and served as a witness in several court cases at my firm, I'm not an expert on these subjects. She acknowledged me with a nod. "You requested evidence to prove your wife wasn't having an affair. Proving a negative is challenging. For example, you can verify that a glass hasn't been broken by showing it's undamaged, but proving someone didn't do something is more complicated. I can establish my absence from robbing a bank yesterday with an alibi, but verifying my innocence of actions committed in the past, whether days, years, or decades ago, is almost impossible without consistent records. In your situation, we can monitor your wife over a specific period to see if she's been unfaithful, but we can't confirm she wasn't unfaithful prior to our observation. Proving a negative is not applicable here," I acknowledged, recognizing her logic. "However, if we observe her and find no signs, we can make educated assumptions about her behavior. We may also discover past actions if they exist. Yet, it's impossible to guarantee she never had an affair. Should this approach suit you, Mr. Rowe, we'd be pleased to handle your case. If not, I wish you luck finding someone who can fulfill your requirements." Comprehending her argument, I engaged Hightower's private investigation service. Subsequently, I spent a few more hours with one of their investigators, responding to questions, providing personal details, and discussing suitable scenarios. She pointed out that I had been working in the Atlanta office all week. On Saturday night, following Reagan's bedtime, the basement circuit breaker went out. It wasn't until Sunday afternoon that I realized the house felt warmer upon our return from church and lunch with some new acquaintances. Reagan complained about it, prompting me to check the circuit breaker. After flipping a few switches and resetting it, there was no change in temperature. "I'll contact the HVAC service," I informed her. "Please do. It's unbearably hot tonight," she stressed. I attempted to reach our HVAC company but hung up after being stuck in their automated system. I then dialed the number Donahue had provided. "Hello, this is Trent Rowe. Our AC is malfunctioning. Can someone come over tomorrow at 10 a.m.? I requested. "Great, thanks," she overheard. "It's too hot upstairs, so we'll sleep in the guest room tonight, making it feel like a hotel stay." She grinned. Her suggestion eased my tension since the accusation against her was preposterous. On Monday morning, Reagan instructed me to change and wash the bed sheets. At home today, I interacted with the HVAC technician, a subcontractor for Hightower's private investigation firm, at 10 a.m. Upon his arrival, he initiated work as I switched on the lights. An hour passed before he completed his task. These motion-triggered cameras remain active for 5 minutes after activity ceases, equipped with wide-angle lenses to covertly record whatever is in view. They're suitable for legal purposes, but not film production. There are 3 in your bedroom, 1 in each room, and 1 on the bathroom door. They will record everything. I compensated him for installation and 2 weeks' rent, thanked him, and resumed work. Upon returning home, I noticed a chill in the house. "Sweetheart, an additional job in Orlando hotel is necessary for this week's trip. Originally scheduled to be in Tampa on Tuesday night, I will now visit Orlando as well. Loretta has arranged a late Friday flight from Orlando, and I shall attempt to secure an earlier one, although it seems unlikely. I apologize sincerely." "I'll miss you," Reagan stated, suggesting a brief reunion instead. She flashed a smirk, grabbed my hand, guiding me towards the family room couch. "I love you, Trent," she added sincerely. I reciprocated. "I love you too, Reagan." My work in Tampa was successful, and Orlando's follow-up proved effortless. Normally, these tasks were handled remotely, but being present helped maintain focus among our team. I scrutinized construction quality, highlighting any issues to the assistant project manager. He showed potential despite his youth. I thought he'd soon be ready for greater responsibilities. Although I could have left Thursday afternoon, I decided against it as Reagan wasn't due until Friday night. I preferred to give Miss Hightower maximum time to watch over Reagan, yet I remained confident she wouldn't betray my trust. Postponing my return, I spent the day working in my hotel room and later visited an Orlando weapons range in the evening. I leased some firearms for tourists and allowed them to use machine weapons. After wrapping up work at our construction site on Friday, I navigated through congested traffic on I-285 and I-75 to reach our exit. Overjoyed upon arriving home, Reagan greeted me affectionately. She eased my tension with a beer before we cuddled on the couch, then ascended the stairs. On Saturday, Reagan visited the gym while I managed the yard. Post that, I had a drink and watched the Braves game before checking my personal email. The investigator hadn't contacted me yet. I revisited my inbox on Sunday when Reagan was out running errands. This time there was an update. "Dear Mr. Rowe, your order will be prepared by Monday at 11 a.m. Please contact our office to set up delivery. Larson Tool Works." Grateful for this news, I erased the message from my inbox. Upon her arrival home, Reagan observed I appeared unwell and evaded her affectionate gestures. "I'm not feeling great," I replied. "I don't want you to catch anything. Let me give you a hug before you rest while I prepare dinner." She embraced me, but my concern grew as I could only offer comforting pats and lean on her shoulder. An unfamiliar fragrance wafted through the air instead of her usual scent. I skipped dinner on Sunday and woke up early on Monday. The altered odor in her hair ignited doubts within me. Initially, I tried to chalk it up as a random perfume sample. The following morning, I confirmed my appointment with Miss Hightower and arrived at her office a few minutes past 11 a.m. Upon my arrival, she welcomed me and gestured for me to sit. "Mr. Rowe, We've wrapped up our investigation early, and I regret to inform you that the news is grim, she said, pushing a file toward me. My world shattered as I flipped through the pages. There she was with an unknown man in our bedroom, while another photo depicted the same scenario. Hold on, the individual in this photograph doesn't resemble the one in the first, I remarked. Apologies, it's detailed in the report. We traced her interactions with 3 distinct individuals across 4 instances from Saturday to this afternoon. The second encounter was reenacted, this time at a private residence. What? I was taken aback. She went shopping yesterday. Her expression was serious, and she nodded. Mrs. Rowe shopped in the afternoon on Saturday, following her second rendezvous with partner number 2, and on Sunday, she only visited the grocery store. You might want to examine receipts or credit card statements if she didn't pay in cash. But she was at the gym on Saturday, I murmured, still shocked. Ms. Hightower shook her head. I regret to inform you, Mr. Rowe. The photograph of her exiting the hotel with partner number 2 suggests she wasn't actually at a gym. How is that possible? I pressed, anger replacing shock. 3 different men in a week, and I was caring for her beforehand and afterwards. Ms. Hightower held up a hand. I'm not a psychologist, Mr. Rowe, merely an efficient investigator. Your wife could be suffering from a condition called hyperphysical engagement disorder, known commonly as nymphomania. She has taken significant measures to conceal her activities from you. Flowers, I sighed, noticing the fragrance in her hair. She had bathed after seeing him the previous day. Perhaps she simply washed her hair or used a scented product. She is very particular about her appearance and even switches bed sheets between lovers. Multiple spouses have been caught by telltale signs. However, in our bed, I continued reminiscing, she had even switched the guest bed sheets recently. Indeed, on 2 of the 3 nights you were away, she was with someone in our bedroom. Don't refer to them as lovers. They are unfaithful, adulterous fools. She nodded in agreement. Yes, one of them is indeed unfaithful. We are unsure about the first one's name, but the third isn't married. The second appears to be her regular partner, making him an adulterer as well. We found out he's Noah War, your wife's supervisor at her company, who's 32 years old. I groaned, discovering his image in the file, my knuckles tightening. I was about to say something about that, I responded. Noah War took over as your wife's manager a couple of months back. It's a big company with various branches, so he might be in a different department. I shook my head. Mrs. Ellenby received her promotion in the late spring, and Mr. War became her superior. Your wife never mentioned his name, stating he was introverted, but she did indicate him to you once when you picked her up from work. Miss Hyo nodded disapprovingly. He's not social with the spouses of his alleged mistresses, I bet. Mr. War doesn't have any criminal records or active warrants, but has several unpaid parking fines. Your wife met him at a bar on Wednesday night, drove him to your house for over an hour, and then dropped him off again. We obtained his name from the DMV records and verified it through online searches. I sighed in exasperation, trying to suppress my anger. Miss Hyo went on, Relax, sir. Mr. War has no criminal history or outstanding warrants, but several unpaid parking fines. We're still unfinished. She encountered him, first at a hotel on Saturday, and afterwards at his home the day prior. According to tax documents, that residence belongs to Mrs. Wolvers. If she had arrived slightly earlier, or your spouse departed a few minutes later, it could have been a narrow escape. 2, I whispered irritably. Her game has ended, but she's unaware of it. In the past, I pursued any woman who displayed interest. I realized it wasn't leading me anywhere until I encountered Reagan. She behaved similarly in college, but desired to settle down with me. She professed her love for me, but now... Miss Hyo patted my arm. I cast a furious glance at Noah War's photo. Miss Hyo tightened her grip on my arm. Mr. War, I offer you my condolences for your ordeal. Don't allow your anguish to drive you to do something you'll later regret. Taking revenge can destroy your life. You could face imprisonment, lose your job and all your achievements. And keep in mind, the fault lies with her, not you. She made me nod before adding, proceed with caution. Avoid her actions from jeopardizing your future. Keep a rein on your emotions. Be cautious not to overreact. My thoughts whirred. Betrayal was now certain. Dreams of starting a family shattered. Desire for retribution sparked. I knew I wouldn't harm her physically, but intended to inflict emotional pain in return. I'll be measured, but she'll feel every ounce of the hurt she caused me. Miss Hightower sighed and made one last entreaty. Please be careful, Mr. Rowe. Don't overstep. It's simpler than you think to transgress. Miss Hyo suggested George C. Godwin as a divorce attorney. I spent 2 hours in Piedmont Park, pondering my next move, then met with him. Mr. Godwin was an elderly black man, Miss Hightower's younger uncle. He was short, sturdy, and jovial, contrary to his niece's grandeur and reserve. Familiar with family law and the intricacies of Georgia's legal system, he was my guide. We addressed each other informally and conversed casually before discussing the divorce. Upon seeing the photos, he whistled in approval. That settles it then. What is required? You gave him the flash drive containing all the documents as per Ms. Hightower's recommendation. He inspected it and commended your niece's diligence. This girl has a keen eye, Trent. Everything appears in order. I will compile it and inform you when we're prepared to submit. Can this be completed by next Monday? Yes, but it will necessitate overtime. Please proceed. I then revealed my strategy and an extra demand. His facial expression remained unchanged. Proceed with caution, Trent. You are justified in your anger, but in legal matters, one must exercise care. Appearance and demeanor matter in court. I managed to smile, aware there's no major waterway in downtown Atlanta. I arrived home late on Monday, feigning exhaustion due to a minor illness. I kept my distance from Reagan, pretending to be unwell. After showering and brushing my teeth, I tried to clear my mind. On Tuesday morning, I departed early without disturbing her to catch my flight to Charlotte. On Thursday, I made a call I disliked. Ethan, this is Trent. I owe you an apology. You were correct, and I was mistaken. She deceived me. Ethan, acting like a brother, swiftly forgave me and inquired about how he could assist. I spent an extra night at home on Friday, feigning exhaustion. The following morning, I visited my parents' house to aid my father with a task. I was inclined to inform him, but knew I had to be patient. I contacted Reagan late on Saturday to say I wouldn't return until Sunday afternoon. She seemed unavailable and not alone during the call. I made a false "I love you" before hanging up. On Sunday afternoon, while it was probable that Reagan was out with someone else, Mr. Godwin reached out via text. I spoke with him, and he confirmed everything was prepared as required. The Best Friends Forever group were to serve the documents on Monday at 11 a.m., according to my instructions. I excused myself from work, leaving Reagan a note stating I had personal matters to attend to. I proceeded to the office to finalize my arrangements. Reagan phoned twice, and I informed her that the case was progressing slowly and I'd be home even later. I assured her I would leave early on Monday and spend the evening with her. She brightened up and declared her affection. I lied, considering her dishonesty. I thought reincarnation would be challenging. She growled when I climbed into bed that night, marking the last time I'd be there. After she left for work, I traversed the house, labeling everything I owned with vibrant painter's tape. Community property would be part of the settlement or donated. At 7:45, Ethan appeared, followed by the moving team. I assisted them initially, then Ethan took control while I packed essentials. Everything in the truck was delivered to the warehouse. Reagan didn't notice I had shifted my weapons to my parents' house on Saturday. Nearly finished and about to depart, Amy, Reagan's neighbor and friend, spotted the truck and asked if we were moving. I managed to intercept her before she saw anything. I replied with a smirk, "I'm surprising Reagan with new furniture for our upcoming anniversary, 5 years next week. I'm clearing out old furniture and clutter before it arrives tonight." She promised not to disclose it until she's told, giving a gentle smile as she departed. By midday, the secret would likely become common knowledge, which made me thankful for the approaching 11 o'clock. I generously rewarded the movers, bid farewell to Ethan with a handshake and gratitude, then off to the bank I went. At 9 in the morning, I took out half the funds from our accounts as a cashier's check, transferring it into a newly opened account at a credit union. At 10:45 a.m., I parked in an office building lot in Sandy Springs and booted up my laptop. I had closed the existing credit card with a zero balance after applying for a new one under my name. The process took longer than anticipated, causing me to break into a sweat due to the time pressure. By 10:57 a.m., everything was completed, and I patiently waited for the scheduled text message. At 11 a.m., the process server notified me that Reagan was on her way. Shortly after, another message came in. She had arrived in the lobby, visibly nervous. I uploaded a pre-written email to our family account, awaiting the planned text. Ignoring advice from Ms. Hightower and her uncle to avoid overstepping, I decided to send a detailed message about my divorce from Reagan using work email. The message, addressed to family and friends, contained 3 blurred photos of Reagan and Noah, clearly revealing our affair. Despite the vague nature of the images, they were not sent to Reagan or Noah. After hitting send and confirming delivery, I logged off. At 11:03 a.m., my phone rang. It was Reagan, questioning the divorce and asking why. She expressed surprise, claiming we were happy, but I found out otherwise. She requested an explanation via a note on the envelope her lawyer provided. Hearing her swear and yell, just as she did during our wedding 5 years ago, she promised love again. "Crap," she exclaimed. "Trent, it's not what it looks like. Let me explain." However, I responded that we were finished. "My lawyer's details are in the folder. Contact him if you require assistance." After our phone conversation, she continued arguing, which I ignored by ending the call. She subsequently called back, but her messages, filled with denials and falsehoods, went straight to voicemail without being listened to. I immediately blocked her number afterwards. I contacted my father-in-law instead, as we were both friends and relatives. "Hi, Bob. It's Trent calling. I regret having to disturb you at work, but this is critical, and it requires your immediate attention." The conversation took a turn for the worse. Upon hearing my voice, I could tell he was taken aback. "What seems to be the matter, son?" "Bob, I'm sorry to share this with you, but Reagan's failure to uphold our marriage promises has led me to make the decision to end our marriage." "Trent, no, I understand that my daughter is gone, but things have changed. You can't blame her for something she can't control." "Bob, I wouldn't do that, but she's relapsed and it's severe. It all happened just 2 weeks ago while I was out of town. I have the locations, dates, times, images, and videos as evidence. It's been eroding me. I dislike informing you in this manner, yet you must understand that I'm not opting out of this situation voluntarily. I can no longer rely on her. The legal documents were submitted earlier today and she has already received them." "No, I can hardly accept it. She assured me she had moved past this. She reassured all of us." "Bob, her assurances were not enough. If she had remained faithful, I would have loved her forever, but now it's too late. The love I held for her has vanished. However, I still care about you and your wife, which is why I'm informing you directly." Bob lamented over his daughter's actions. We bid farewell, tinged with regret. Subsequently, I contacted Chessie but only reached voicemail. Realizing that Bob had probably already called her, I left a brief message. It was 11:16 a.m., and I moved forward with the part of my plan I harbored doubts about. If I pursued this course, I might unintentionally harm an innocent person, but if I didn't, I could face further harm myself. I donned sunglasses, a baseball cap, and a fake delivery company ID badge around my neck. 11 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. was when Ethan expected calls under Sunshine Process Serving. I popped a gum bubble and strode into the building. At the security post, I greeted, "Hi, TC Rowe from Sunshine Couriers and Process Serving. I have a priority delivery for Mrs. Melissa Wallover." The guard wrinkled his brow. "Such deliveries are handled at the receiving center. No, the law demands a photo ID and signature. It's prudent to do it discreetly, or I might have to locate her, causing unnecessary complications." "Hold on," the guard said. "What's needed? I'll identify her in the lobby, get her signature, and depart with no fuss." He agreed with a nod. "Proceed upstairs, but you'll need a visitor pass. I'll keep your ID until then." "Understood," I replied, handing him my driver's license. Reluctantly, he accepted it and issued me the pass. "Retrieve the badge to claim your license back." "Understood." I nodded and made my way to the 3rd floor. At the reception desk, the conversation repeated. The secretary signaled Mrs. Wallover. I discarded the gum, placing my hat inside the bag, removing my disguise. Melissa Wallover, aged around 28 to 30, with a tanned complexion, dark brown hair, and captivating brown eyes, looked worried as the receptionist indicated her direction. She seemed hesitant before approaching me. "Did Jan give you something for me to sign?" she asked tentatively. "No, Mrs. Wallover. I'm Trent J. Rowe. You don't need to sign anything. However, I must hand this over to you as it involves you." "What is it?" she asked. "Mrs. Wallover, I regretfully inform you that your husband was involved in an affair with my wife," I murmured, presenting her a photograph of them together in bed. The envelope contains evidence supporting these claims. Tears cascaded down her face. "It must be fake, I assure you. The detective agency I hired to investigate my wife confirmed the affair. The documents in the envelope are legally authentic and unaltered, proving it beyond doubt." She declared she was taking the matter to court, sobbing softly. "But he promised," she murmured sadly. She moved closer to me, and I attempted to console her. "He claimed the first incident was a mistake that wouldn't recur." "Why?" "I'm not certain, Mrs. Wallover. This time it was premeditated and occurred multiple times. The envelope holds proof of 3 encounters in 5 days." She tightly grasped my shirt and shook her head. At 5 feet 5 inches tall, she was significantly shorter than me. After wiping away her tears, she looked at me. "I'm about to take a break for lunch. I can send him a picture if you wish." "Mrs. Wallover, despite your beauty, retribution isn't the solution. You must consider how you will live with yourself. Don't make a decision you may later regret or that the law might not support." She retreated slightly. "You are correct. I gave him another opportunity, but this is the limit. We will go to court." I provided her with the contact details for a private investigator and a lawyer who has been responsive in my case. He submitted the paperwork earlier today. Surprised, she accepted the envelope and expressed gratitude, then inquired, "May I contact you for advice if necessary?" My phone number is inside the envelope. Following a consultation at the lab, Donna Hightower suggested. I spent the subsequent days perspiring, overseeing a task in South Georgia. The fear of acquiring something terrible heightened my annoyance towards Reagan. Thankfully, the lab informed me that I was free of STDs. By the end of the week, I exhaled a sigh of relief. At least that danger had been evaded. Reagan persistently attempted to reach me, leaving messages on both my work voicemail and cell phone from various numbers. As soon as I heard her voice, I erased them, but she didn't seem to grasp the hint. Upon returning to the office on Friday, more messages awaited me, which I promptly deleted one by one. I subsequently used my phone manual to bar her number. The issue was resolved. In anticipation of the weekend, I chose to visit my parents. They too were receiving messages from Reagan, so I blocked her number there as well. My mother was deeply distressed upon learning that Reagan and I had been planning to start a family. She urged me to reconsider the divorce, suggesting that Reagan's actions may not have been as terrible as they seemed. I shook my head and presented her with a cropped picture along with the date. Tears streamed down her face, but she eventually comprehended. She embraced my father tightly before I departed for temporary lodgings. The following day at work, Andy Smith hastily entered my office with distressing news. Trent's water had broken well before his maternity leave, and we were uncertain about how to proceed. We should have offered prayers for Trent and the babies, sent a gift, and prepared Andy to take over for her. He was displeased at having to complete his current project prematurely, but Mr. Strickland considered him the most suitable candidate. Andy looked anxious as he still had a month left on his project. After scrutinizing schedules, Andy and I presented an alternative solution to Mr. Strickland to ensure minimal disturbance to Andy's ongoing project. Instead of him, I'd assume the New Orleans role, managing critical matters on different projects like Baton Rouge. That afternoon, we learned that Mary Jo and her twins were thriving. Heading towards New Orleans, each mile seemed to distance me more from Reagan and my past. By nightfall, I arrived at the hotel, sleeping for a while before heading to work. The morning was spent meeting subcontractors and examining blueprints. As anticipated, everything was in order. So I departed early to visit Mary Jo at the hospital. She had already received the flowers I'd sent, so I offered her a token of gratitude, and a certificate for her children in the neonatal intensive care unit. Although I couldn't personally view them, I watched them on a monitor with MJ and AZ looking fondly on. I was pleased for them, but the idea of not having my own children caused me pain. Shifting my focus, I prioritized the project for the following days. Last Friday, I treated the construction office team to drinks in the French Quarter. On Monday, George Godwin phoned to inquire about the divorce proceedings. He was struggling in Atlanta, with repeated calls from Reagan trying to contact me, growing more frantic with each call. "Are you certain you don't wish to discuss this with her?" he inquired. I returned a sarcastic smile, hearing him chuckle. I appreciated his concern and went back to my tasks. Later that night at the hotel, I received an anonymous text. "Hey Trent, the paperwork was filed today by my lawyer, and Noah has been notified. Can we chat when you can? Thank you, Melissa W." It was late, so I responded via text, and my phone rang almost immediately. "Hello, Trent. Thanks for taking my call." "Of course, Melissa. How are you coping?" "It's difficult, but I will." "Cope," she replied hesitantly. "And how about you?" To steer clear of a lengthy discussion, I asked, "You sound just like yourself, Melissa." "What's happening?" She responded after a moment. "Trent, I wanted to express gratitude for uncovering Noah's actions and preventing me from hasty action. You could have exploited my weakness, but you didn't. I appreciate it. It isn't easy, but I'm resolute about overcoming this. Melissa, it wouldn't have been right for either of us. I'm in a better state, at least somewhat, distanced from her." "I'm glad to see your resolve. Indeed, there's still a long road ahead, but it's improved compared to before." "Good." I pondered suggesting she call if she needed to talk, but held back. Her soon-to-be ex was mostly her burden, though I too had been affected. I had plans for him, so I remained silent. We wished each other luck and parted ways. Work in New Orleans was progressing well, but I also oversaw the Baton Rouge project and consulted on others. I felt as if I were neck-deep in a swamp with alligators. George called a fortnight later with an update. "Trent, there's news. Note: the text you provided was already rephrased, so I have not made any further changes to the text. I only ensured that the rephrasings remained in the same language and preserved the full meaning. Is Rose's legal advisor seeking a meeting? It needs to happen in person in Atlanta across several sessions. What should be my course of action?" My anger flared at their strategies, but George had cautioned me. We chose not to disclose evidence of her infidelity. Should we make it public now? We must deliver it to her attorney, yet Judge Johnson may rescind the request. Inform him beforehand. A week later, Reagan's demand for counseling was turned down, though Judge Johnson advised she address her sexual compulsion issues. One issue resolved. For months, while Reagan and her attorney battled George in court, I maintained a low profile, fearful she might have hired someone to track me. I had George update my will and life insurance to exclude her from any potential inheritance. Once Mary Jo and the Aziz twins were discharged from the hospital, I dined with them and babysat one evening. The twins wailed loudly upon their parents' departure, making me pray for only one child if I ever have any. Melissa Warr repeatedly reached out to me for emotional support and strength. I made sure not to step over any boundaries that could be perceived as romantic or unfaithful. When things improved in Melissa's life, her messages ceased. As Mary Jo's maternity leave concluded, a realtor helped me find a house using funds prior to Reagan's presidency. I purchased a home in Dunwoody a few weeks before MJ returned. After staying in temporary housing for nearly 3 months, I desired a comfortable living space and to retrieve my belongings from storage. Mary Jo resumed work, but since we didn't have any new projects in New Orleans, she intended to stay at home temporarily. Aziz had secured a position at Loyola, so this wasn't unexpected. MJ asked me to consider her for future New Orleans projects, and I consented. Furthermore, my return to Atlanta meant leaving behind my unofficial godchildren, the children of MJ and Aziz, whom I often babysat. I would miss their growth, and it reminded me of my own childlessness due to Reagan. Eventually, Reagan prolonged the divorce process, but George Godwin informed me that Judge Johnson was also tired of it as the end neared. I settled into my new house, unpacked, and met a few new neighbors, among them a pleasant divorced woman named Noelle. I thanked her for the brownies, but turned down her dinner invitation, stating I wasn't ready to date until my divorce was finalized. Ethan, who lacked understanding of the Georgia court system, inquired, "When will you start dating again?" I wished to avoid anything influencing the settlement with Reagan during the divorce proceedings. "So how is that wicked cow doing?" he queried. "I don't know and I don't care. By the way, you still owe her a lot," I acknowledged. "Yes, she'll receive it when the time comes." The judge, tired of Reagan's delays, scheduled a final hearing for early April. I arrived slightly beforehand and spotted Reagan approaching. "Trent, this wasn't what we had planned." "I understand, Reagan, yet you couldn't stick to your promises. You were frequently absent, a fact you were aware of when you agreed to marry me. I always compensated for it, except for the last time when you infideled with your superior and others upon my return." Your anger was evident, tears running down your face as spectators looked on. "I had needs," you said. "We've discussed this before marriage. You pledged to curb your wanderlust. You faltered. Get over it and move forward. If you can't, find another counselor." She shuddered at my words as more people watched. I departed, noticing George approaching. "Trent, please," she pleaded, but George and I entered the courtroom. The judge required our presence for the final signing to avoid further holdups. Reagan erupted in anger, but the judge hushed her and issued his verdict. The gavel sounded, marking the end of our 5-year marriage. I thanked George and exited. Ignoring Reagan's pleas and shouts, George filed for a restraining order the following day. Judge Johnson approved it, mandating that Reagan keep her distance from me. Violating this order could have landed her in jail temporarily, but she wisely vanished from my life. The weekend after, I resumed dating, scheduling a postponed date with Noelle. She was amiable, yet our shared interests were scant, limited mostly to a protracted dry period. When I drove her home, she invited me inside, and soon enough we found ourselves in her bedroom. After the second encounter, we both smiled, and Noelle cuddled closer to me. "Trent," she said, "we can repeat this if you wish," implying she wasn't pursuing anything long-term. I thanked her and departed. Noelle and I remained casual acquaintances without further meetings. The subsequent weekend brought another date, followed by another in Birmingham during a work trip. After each rendezvous, I felt desolate, acknowledging that I hadn't moved any closer to finding the right woman. I yearned for a friend, partner, and lifelong ally to establish a family with. Over the following 2 months, I grappled with doubts about finding lasting contentment. Still, fleeting joy was common and enjoyable. During Independence Day weekend, I went to see my parents and observed my sister, her husband, and their 4 children. My mother, who knows me more than I understood, remarked, "You won't gift your father and me grandchildren unless you alter something." "I understand. Mom, I bought a house and am working on it," I replied. She said sagely, "Trent, a home isn't complete yet. A man and a suitable woman can turn it into one. You need to locate a suitable woman." "I understand, Mom. I'll find her. Just give me some space," I assured her. She playfully added, "If we grant you more time, your father and I will be gone before meeting our grandchildren." Her words made me contemplate. One night in late July, I received a text from Melissa Warr. "Greetings. Trent, this is Melissa Warr. Can we chat when you have a spare moment?" I was taken aback to hear from her after such a long while. I completed cleaning the paint sprayer before responding, suggesting she contact me when convenient. Shortly after, she phoned. "Hi, Trent. Appreciate our conversation." "Not at all, Melissa. How are you? It's been a while since we last spoke, and I wasn't certain if you wished to continue following the events." She chuckled. "Unless I played matchmaker for your ex-wife and your now ex-husband," she commented. "I don't blame you for their actions or the mess they created, so I see no reason to cut off our conversation." "That's good to hear because I assure you I had no part in it. I never suspected as much, so what's new? I stayed longer than anticipated, but now I'm liberated. I even regained my maiden name, Ortiz. I wanted to express my gratitude for your assistance. You showed me his true colors, offered free evidence, and gave sound advice. I consulted another attorney, but your help was invaluable, and I'm deeply appreciative." "You're welcome. Your thanks are appreciated." "Stop overthinking it, all right? It's tough, Trent. You were my beacon when I was at my lowest, feeling down and depressed. I may not know you well, but I appreciate what I see so far. Therefore, I'm going to take a risk and do something I haven't done before. Would you have dinner with me?" We had an enjoyable dinner, yet I spent the night pondering how delightful and attractive she was, and what kind of fool her previous partner must be. Reagan was equally beautiful, but possessed a sinister side that deceived me. In my mind, she dropped from an 11 to a negative figure. "You're watching," she said with a smirk, "almost as much as I do." I smiled and nodded. It's entertaining to concentrate when you have someone so lovely to focus on. She blushed and covered her mouth. "Would you like to leave this place and perhaps return to my house?" "I believe I would enjoy that," she murmured. "Please, Trent, take me home or somewhere, immediately." 1. She expressed her need and impatience, followed by us driving to her street. Minutes later, she directed me into the garage with an open door. 2. That night we remained in bed except for occasional trips for water or bathroom use. Fortunately, it was Saturday, allowing me to skip work since I wished to stay with her perpetually. 3. After our morning date, she drifted off to sleep, at which point I exhaled a sigh of relief and headed towards the bathroom. 4. The sunrise illuminated the room through the open curtain, offering my first proper glance at her bedroom. Her belongings were scattered about, causing me to smile. 5. The double bed, acquainted from the previous night, and her pile of pillows had moved to the floor. A TV stand near a chair was arranged for viewing from bed. 6. However, it was Melissa's dresser adorned with photos that grabbed my focus. I briefly surveyed them before pausing to pick up one picture, at which point she questioned me from the bed. "Who is the girl in these photos?" asked Melissa. "That's my daughter, Ansley," she responded. "She's 3 years old and holds a special place in my heart." Taken aback, I admitted, I didn't know about her. I wished to shield her from the Noah situation. She was a contentious matter during our divorce, which prolonged the process. "I don't want you to meet her until we're certain about us," she explained. "Where is she now?" I tried to maintain my composure. "She's with him this weekend. Is there a problem?" she inquired. I had grown fond of Melissa, but the revelation was startling. "Melissa, I can't say for sure. I value you greatly, but if there's one person I dislike as much as my ex-wife, it's your ex-husband. If things work out between us, I'd like to be part of Ansley's life. But if I attend her events, won't Noah be there?" She understood my concern with a sigh. "He's a liar and a cheat, but he cares for her." "Precisely. Every time I see him, it will stir up memories of what he did during my marriage. I might resent him, and Ansley could sense the tension. She could develop resentment towards me, damaging our relationship. Despite the pain, I believe it would spoil everything." She sat up quietly and said, "Are you saying we have no prospect?" "As much as I wish otherwise, yes, I feel that's the case." She nodded, tears flowing down her face. "I thought it was ideal. Trent, please just leave." She tapped her phone a few times and continued, "The garage door will be open for you." She returned to the bed crying, covering herself with a sheet. I collected my clothes and dressed in the hallway as I left, hating myself almost as much as I despised her ex-husband. It was painful, but deep down, I knew it was the correct choice. Later that day, I visited my parents. I shared a brief account of what occurred, but they could sense my hidden pain. Mom attempted to draw more information, but I declined, stating it wouldn't work out. She provided me with a comforting hug and assured me everything would be all right, but I found it hard to believe. On Sunday, we encountered my sister and her family post-church for lunch. Whilst waiting for a table, she drew me aside, demanding I disclose everything to her. Given our past experiences helping each other navigate failed relationships, I divulged my feelings, albeit omitting explicit bedroom details, which she likely inferred. "It won't be effortless," she said, "but you can manage if you persevere and acknowledge your sincere affection for her. One date doesn't reveal much. Multiple dates may unveil whether it's worth pursuing." "Thanks, sis. You're spot on. A single date doesn't tell the whole story, but it offered enough insight to foresee the heartache if it falters due to past issues. Let's give it a go. You won't know unless you attempt." I acknowledged with a nod and agreed to ponder over it. No further discussion ensued, but it lingered in my thoughts. Ethan, who best understood me, concurred with my sentiments. Yet after a factory visit near LaGrange, I doubted if Ethan's knack for women made his agreement beneficial. The ensuing weekend, Ethan arranged dates for us with 2 different women. We enjoyed ourselves, and the prospect of dating wasn't discarded. During our divorce proceedings, Reagan insisted on keeping our house. I persuaded George to resist, compelling her to sell it due to financial inability to cover the buyout without sacrificing other desired possessions. It was somewhat childish, but I believed it was warranted. George and his lawyer maintained a friendly rapport, and George later learned that Reagan intended to purchase a condo. A rumor circulated about Reagan's impending marriage with Noah. I reached out to George as this could impact my finances. George had debated that, given her infidelity, she shouldn't receive alimony. However, the judge granted her a small monthly allowance for 5 years or until remarriage. If she truly remarries, I'll verify and terminate the alimony, George said. Indeed, it simply illustrates that some individuals never grasp new lessons, I remarked, impressed by their continued relationship, which solidified my choice to discontinue things with Melissa. No, George chuckled. It's my continued operation that depends on this. The news about their wedding made me reevaluate a decision I had previously considered during the divorce, which I never thought was feasible. Upon hearing about Will Kleiner, a friend from Reagan's firm, I contacted him. We'd been acquaintances since college and resumed contact after I started dating Reagan. Over lunch, I shared my predicament with Will. That's awful, Trent. I'm truly sorry. War mentioned transfer to another department. It all makes sense now. They're clearly avoiding HR issues. Do you have a formal policy regarding such incidents? Of course. If they breach it, they could face severe consequences, and so might the firm. I hesitate to ask, but can you provide me with that section of your employee handbook? Yes. Or just keep the source confidential. The subsequent Saturday, I went on a date and met Will and Lori Kleiner at a Braves game. Will handed me a flash drive, and later I visited George's house to discuss it. Trent, I apologize. Even if you manage to provide evidence of Noah's relationships with multiple women, the law doesn't permit a lawsuit against him. Georgia abolished alienation of affection in '79, making it impossible to sue a partner for seducing or diverting someone else's affections. Similarly, suing their firms is also not an option. Only in extremely rare cases where the firm knowingly disregards such actions can you sue. Winning a substantial amount even then is challenging. Oh well, I thought, hoping that financially punishing the firm would bring consequences for Noah and Reagan. George chuckled. Many potential plaintiffs share your sentiment. You can only sue if the firm was aware and took no action. Oh well, I repeated. He laughed again. Don't lose hope. First, let's tackle the spousal support issue, and then explore other possibilities. A week later, George submitted a motion proving Reagan and Noah had obtained a marriage license, aiming to terminate spousal support payments. Reagan's attorney contested it, but Judge Johnson sided with us, ending the payments. When I brought up the second issue, George told me, I advised you to be patient. 6 months later, George and I had lunch. Trent, I recommended waiting as newlyweds require time to acclimate. Noah may exercise caution initially, but once the novelty wanes, he's likely to revert to his previous behavior. After 2 weeks, Donna Hightower and her investigator discovered that Noah was already engaged with a new subordinate. George compiled the evidence and passed it on to a legal acquaintance. We don't want this traceable back to you, Trent, he said. If it does and Noah loses his job, Reagan might seek reinstatement of alimony. She won't hear it from me, and I doubt Noah will tell her. George smirked, saying, sneaky, sneaky. The lawyer friend delivered the evidence to Noah's workplace. According to Will, Noah was removed by security and is unlikely to return. Reagan cried, asking why, but no one explained. That'll teach him, I said. If I continue this way, I risk turning into a bitter old man, but that's a risk I'm prepared to take. I sent the evidence anonymously, and the following evening I received a call. Trent, Melissa Ortiz exclaimed. You likely don't wish to engage with me, but I had to share this. Noah phoned last night, stating he was let go because of restructuring and would petition for child support reduction. I reached out to a contact at the firm, learning there were whispers about his dismissal. Today, I received an anonymous express parcel, which clarifies matters and should assist in maintaining my alimony as Noah files his petition. I thank whoever is responsible, so thank you. If you've spoken to the correct person, they'd say you're welcome. Regarding the package, it appears some people never change their ways. Noah might spin a sad tale to the judge, but when my lawyer presents the parcel, I hope the judge uses those exact words against him. He recently remarried. I can't help but wonder if he started infidelity right away this time. Melissa, let it go and enjoy life. You deserve happiness. We bid farewell, possibly for good. For the first time in a while, I feel liberated. After enduring the hardships inflicted upon me by Reagan and Noah, I was back, having faced as much adversity as they had subjected me to. Reagan, once residing in a luxurious home with an unfaithful spouse who paid alimony and child support, now found herself in an apartment. I harbored no regrets about the past. Pondering over what transpired, I acknowledged that I no longer hurled derogatory remarks at them, having obtained my retribution. I felt indifferent towards them. This recognition brought a smile to my face, but it was fleeting. I stumbled upon an unsettling revelation. Despite everything, they still held sway over me. I had let my past with Reagan and Noah rob me of the opportunity for happiness with Melissa. Although I had relationships and intimate encounters with multiple women, I acknowledged that none stirred feelings in me like Melissa did. She remained as much a presence in my mind as Reagan and Noah. Until I could laugh at them, I wouldn't be free. In that instant, I knew what I desired to do. I reached for the phone, retrieved Melissa's number from the day she received the package, and dialed her. Hi, Melissa. This is Trent J. Rowe. Trent, let's discuss something. It seems you aided me when there was no obligation. I'm here to listen if you are. Tonight, something struck me. If I haven't missed my opportunity, I'd like to converse with you about it and explore the potential for change. There was a pause on the line, but I sensed her breathing, so I pressed on. Though I urged you to leave the past behind, I now understand that I too was entangled in it. I wish to express my regret for this oversight and seek an opportunity to set things right. She didn't interject, and I could almost sense Melissa nodding her head. To my reassurance, she had not found someone else, and unexpectedly, she agreed to reconsider our relationship. We had another first date the following weekend, determined not to rush, but sometimes events have their own tempo. She welcomed me in, and we enjoyed wine on the couch, conversing until 11. A few moments later, I was carrying her up the stairs. We lay together in silence, crossing our fingers for a positive outcome. Over the following months, we faced challenges but found ourselves in agreement on significant matters, and minor differences became less pertinent. Following our second date, my feelings for her deepened considerably, leading me to acknowledge that it was more than liking her. Melissa shared the same sentiment, and we began planning a future together. About a year and a half later, we got married. Ansley served as our flower girl while Melissa and I exchanged vows sincerely. Since then, we've encountered Noah on several occasions, but the situation wasn't as unpleasant as I initially anticipated. During our first encounter, he made an inappropriate comment about taking seconds, to which I quietly responded. Noah, thank you for getting rid of Regan, the unfaithful vixen, for me. If you believe she'll be faithful to you, you're even more foolish than I thought. And thank you for facilitating my relationship with Melissa, the genuine woman you couldn't hold on to. He boasted about getting the best of the agreement, causing him to almost choke and tighten his fists, for I had the power to destroy him then. He turned to his young daughter, muttering something before kissing her goodnight alongside Melissa. Months later, he admitted to divorcing Regan, confirming my words were true. As he attempted to suggest something, I silenced him. Too bad you didn't figure it out earlier, Noah. Never bring it up again. Since then, Noah has not spoken to me, but I see remorse in his eyes when we are together, and I always smile. Ansley is now 6 years old, residing with her grandparents Ortiz. Melissa clings to my hand tightly while I reciprocate the squeeze. When the doctor orders, Melissa pushes one last time. Eventually, she relaxes and I kiss her forehead as the medical team attends to us. The midwife announces, "Mr. and Mrs. Rowe, congratulations, you have a beautiful baby boy." In that instant, I realized all the hardships and ordeals were justified. Nothing I'd alter here.